to the report. Oops.
Can't we move for approval on faith?
You can move. It simply says we met, we elected such and such people, and we elected to the vestry and to the diocesan convention, and that we talked about all of the updates that had been happening with the completion of the Memorial Garden and that celebration that we had in January, as well as the restoration, the finishing of the restoration from the Hurricane Ian. So that was our meeting last year.
I move approval of the minutes.
Thank you. All right. And I will get them included in the published ones. And then you have the agenda before you, and so, right. You don't need to, well, okay, we can approve the agenda unless there's anything else that needs to be added to it. We have before you the election of our new vestry members, and there is a report on the following page from the nominating committee chair, David Smith. Members of the nominating committee included himself, as well as Mary Campbell, if you'll stand so people can know and see who you are. Mary Campbell, Mike Quartz, Stan Eikenberry, and Kathy Silverberg. And they met several times and discussed many names, reached out to some of you. And the people who have put themselves forward to stand for election include Bill Durkin. Are you here, Bill? Thank you, sir. Roger Lewis, who is watching, I think, online. Melissa Lachlan. And Ann Peterson. Thank you all for putting yourselves forward for election. Do I have a resolution? Yes.
We accept the nominations of the nomination committee.
Okay, Kathy, any other? Second. Bruce, all in favor? Aye. Welcome. Welcome, guys. The ones who are continuing on vestry did not know that they would be in a position of having to call a new rector. The ones who are rotating off of vestry are thankful. And the fun news is that for those of you who are just elected, you not only get to be in the process of calling a new rector, but to be a part of the leadership team that helps them transition into this community for them. So you've got big responsibilities on the horizon. So thank you. All right. We have a report from the treasurer of our financial position. If I could ask Rick to come forward, do that. I'm going to see if I can get the volume up for you a little bit.
Okay, sure. Good morning. Well, as you all know, last year was pretty simple. Nothing much happened. We went into the year with the usual trepidation of, are we going to be able to afford to do what we need to do? And I'm happy to report that with the generosity of this congregation, we were able to do that. Our revenues and expenses last year were $571,000. That was up from $503,000 the year before. So that enabled us to do really everything that we had anticipated doing. That would be the Memorial Garden and all of the repairs from Hurricane Ian. Of course, as we all know, then we got hit again. But again, we had generosity from not only the community fund, which many of you had contributed to, but also contributions and gifts from the congregation. So as you can see, we were able to completely repair and recondition our campus. And as you look around and see the beautiful landscaping, and then the new audio-visual, the upgrade to the audio-visual, and soon to see the new handicap lift. You'll see that everything is pretty well done and paid for. So I'm pleased to say that last year our pledges increased from 91 pledges in 2023 to 102 in 2024. And the gifts increased from 84 gifts in 2023 to 93 gifts last year. So far this year, our pledging is on track. We have 84 pledges and about $380,000. So I thank all of you who have made your pledges and ask those that have not to please consider doing so, as it really helps us in the finance side to plan and budget. Again, I think this was a very successful year. Our endowment funds increased in value over 14%, and we're very pleased about that. Our budget for next year is a little bit uncertain. I'm sorry, our budget for this year, 2025. We know most of what we expect to spend money on. What we don't know is what our search for our new leadership will be. In our budget, we have kept the numbers the same as last year with regard to our clergy, and I believe that our search will stay within that. So even with that unknown, I would ask you all to approve the projected operating budget for 2025. So we have a motion by Mary, seconded by Mike. All in favor? Well, I think that's an approval. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to either answer them now or later. Sure. If not.
A few things about the 2025 budget. As you see the breakdown, the categories, when we think of clergy and how their time is spent, is divided into those categories by the percentage of time that either myself or Father Chris works on these various areas. And so we can, and it's always available. There is no secret. We have a line item budget available to you, and you just need to ask Robin in the church office if you would like to see that. But as Rick said, we're keeping our expenses at a steady rate. In part, there's two pieces to that. We recognize that not everybody is returning this season for the season and will be here on island, and therefore giving changes when people are not here. You all, since the pandemic, have been very faithful in making your pledges and gifts to St. Andrew's, regardless of whether the hurricanes or storms or whatever have only allowed you to be here for a week or two or for the entire season. Your faithfulness has made an absolute difference in how we're able to function. Where churches took the assistance and aid from the government during the pandemic, we did not. We felt like we could pay our way, and that was due to your generosity. The same held true for hurricanes. Not that we are opposed to FEMA. We have filled out all the paperwork with the hopes that we would get something in return. But it really has been your giving that has sustained our ability to do ministry here. And as Rick said, we look to be on course for a similar situation in 2025, but there are a number of people, about 40 households, that we haven't heard from yet, and that's not insignificant. And so while we think we're on track, if you have not thought to make a pledge, if you think your giving doesn't matter, no matter how big or how small, it does. And so I encourage you to give. Where I am going, to the cathedral in St. Petersburg, there are a number of people who stopped their giving, waiting to see who would come. And so they have a $100,000 deficit that I get to step into and to work to encourage people to give. And so my message to you is twofold. Thank you. Thank you for your commitment to this community, and thank you for helping to keep St. Andrew's strong and for the ministry to happen. We have been very fortunate in my time here not to have to draw on our endowment, the operating endowment. The operating endowment is to feed the operating budget, and in my 12 years, we only drew on it once, and that was to pay off our diocesan loan for the buildings that we did. And I say that with some degree of pride, but in you, because it means that we have been paying our way. We've been paying our way. And that wasn't our past. In the past, we had to heavily rely on that endowment. And in the future, as faith in our country, not faith in the country, but faith in general in this country and around the world continues to diminish, the expectation worldwide is that the number of Christians worshiping in churches will decrease. And so this endowment that we have will help in the future to bridge the gap if Christianity continues to be on the decline. It will help to assure that St. Andrew's is here and the doors are open, and that anybody in need of a prayer, in need of encouragement, in need of pastoral care, in need of hope can have that. And so, again, thank you for your continued giving and for your faithfulness to St. Andrew's. I skipped over the election of our delegates to convention for this coming year, and I want to say first thank you to the Spurgeons, Jay and Susan, and to Melissa for serving as our delegates this past year. The storm messed everything up, and so we had to do it virtually. It was the most unfun business meeting that I've ever had to attend in terms of the business side of things. It was the most fun because we got to meet in my house, in the rectory, and just do some wonderful fellowship together as we watched. And so a word of thank you to the three of them and to Mary Mulvaney for being willing to serve as the alternate. And standing for election are those same four. And so by the grace of God, do I have a motion to accept them as our diocesan delegates? Thank you, Kimberly. Do I have a second? Second. Stan, all in favor? Aye. And Mary, you may end up being up this year. Never know. Okay, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to our wonderful and illustrious senior warden who finishes his duties, and ask him to share what he knows to date about the call of a new rector and what that process looks like. A word of thanks and applause for our wonderful David Smith.
She said, what I know about the upcoming process. I don't know anything, so I can sit down. When all of this took place at the beginning of January, the first thing I did was Google Episcopal SWFL, and that is the website for the Episcopal Diocese of Southwest Florida. The amount of information on that website is overwhelming. And through a search, you Google down and you come to a category that is called search process. And folks, that's what we are in, is a process. That document for the search process is 55 pages long. But what it does is show you that our denomination, and in our particular diocese, has been through this search process numerous times. And so therefore, they are well prepared to assist us as we move forward. Now, one of the first things that's going to happen is the canon of the ordinary will be meeting with the new vestry to totally outline the process and where responsibilities lie. As that begins to take place, there will be an outside consulting firm hired to come in and survey the entire community on the input that the community will make as to who we are as a congregation and who the individual will be that will be the new rector, developing a profile of exactly who we are. And after that is done and professionally put together, professionally solicited, and compiled, the vestry will then have the materials to finalize the profile, and it will be the document and the background that then goes with the putting forth the fact of the job opening and seeking applicants. It is at that time that a search committee by the vestry will be appointed, and it will be that search committee's responsibility to interview, to call, to go through the whole process, and then eventually final candidates will be here, and the vestry ultimately will be putting forth their selection as to the new rector. The time frame for this is not short. The process is going to take a given amount of time. I really am encouraged by the fact that we must go through the process. The energy which is here, the commitment which is here, is overwhelming. And the biggest single mistake that I think we could make is in our desire to bring on board somebody new and to, start the race and keep on running, that we make a mistake. And we really can't afford to do that, because I'm selfish. This is a great community. I don't want to mess it up, all right? I'm not going to be a part of that, but the new vestry, I'm sure, will take on this responsibility, and as needed, I'm sure they're going to reach out to you for help. But that's where we're headed, and I hope that gives you an overview of what's going on. Thanks a million.
When he says, don't rush the process, there are some of the brightest minds in this room. I've often said about this congregation that should I invite 10 or 12 of you to gather around the table to try to solve world peace, you could do it, right? That's just how gifted and spirit-filled you are. We have a unique congregation. It's unique to every church that is a beach community along Southwest Florida. There's about 5 or 6 of us, in that we're seasonal. And when we're here, and in number and in ability to get things done. In the summertime, there is the same congregation, the same people, but with a different ethos and feel. And that's about 30 people. And on any given Sunday, with them traveling, it could be as few as 19, right? And so when David says, let's take our time and do this right, it's because you want
the person who's coming in to be able to see all aspects of this congregation. It's a great place to be. I imagine you're going to get lots of applicants. And so taking your time and being prayerful and figuring out the identity, your DNA of who you are without my leadership. There may be a place that has been just dying to exercise its muscle, that hasn't happened in my time here. And there might be something that's happening now that needs to stop and change. And so the parish profile, the survey that David alludes to is very important. And when you receive the request to participate in, it's called the Holy Cow Survey, I encourage you, and I encourage you to ask other members of the congregation to do that, because it will ask you personally questions that will help to identify the DNA of this parish as it currently exists, not as it existed 12 years ago when I was called. And the last thing I'll say is the polity of the Episcopal Church is for the church to be able to call its rector. The bishop has to approve that person. Once that is done, it's an act of God to remove them, right? I mean that seriously. It takes financial misconduct, sexual misconduct, or pastoral misconduct, and it takes a whole complaint process and a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. You can't just say, I don't like this person, they're not a good preacher, or I don't like this person because they're not doing enough pastoral visitations. It really is an important call that you make, and it's a mutual agreement each year by the vestry and leadership, as well as the rector, to say, how are things working, and should we both continue on this journey together? Or are things not working, and do we need to go our separate ways? But if somebody digs their heels in and y'all aren't happy, there's not a lot of recourse, right? Except for, I guess, pull your pledges and make the person's life miserable. So be prayerful, be intentional, and take your time to make sure that the person that's called is the person that's going to serve you faithfully in the years ahead. I want to say a word of thanks to our outgoing vestry members, and I was teasing Mary saying I wasn't going to credit her, but Mary helped me to write this, Mary Campbell. So give me one moment. Almost there. Okay. One might agree to serve our congregation as a vestry member for 3 years, expecting to follow the paths of their predecessors. Monthly meetings, committee positions, consistent giving of time, talent, and treasure, a bit more than when not on vestry. That's this year's retiring class of 4 outstanding congregants. They had these expectations when they signed on board, and they were soundly modified, those expectations, during their term. I believe they are the first and hopefully only vestry class to have witnessed and helped restore the damages from 3 hurricanes. Witness the selection of their rector to become the dean of the deanery, which I did. Participate in the welcoming of a new bishop to the diocese, which they did. And regretfully accept the resignation of the rector and begin the process of launching a search for a new one. Certainly the cumulative impact of these, following close upon our beginning to lift ourselves out of the ravages of COVID, were a command to keep one's head when many others were losing theirs. Certainly, weathering the storm took on new and urgent meaning. Had we known at their induction, we might have prayed for smooth sailing on behalf of each of them. So it is fitting that we express our deep gratitude for their service, that we pray for smooth sailing for them this day forward. It is our custom to give a token of gratitude to each departing vestry members. And so, as I said, with the help of Mary, Thank you, Mary Campbell. We've selected a book titled Smooth Sailing with Options. And though it's about investing and stock options, we will gift this book. It's coming to you tomorrow with a broad meaning of sailing, a prayer that it be continuously smooth as God permits, and more than one option to change course if the seas become rough. As a Navy hymn that we sing on Sundays says, Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm dost bind the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee for those in peril on the sea. With God on the side of St. Andrew's, much like when our disciples cried out in the storm arising in the Sea of Galilee and Jesus seeming to sleep through it and their fears, he rebuked the wind and there was calm. And there was calm because of the four of you. And those four outgoing vestry members, if you would please rise, are Kay Kemper, David Smith, Rick Granger, and Jim Gressmer.
Jim Gressmer is unfortunately with COVID.
Oh, no.
Not with us.
All right. All right. Would you give them a round of applause? I had all these other wonderful gifts in mind, but you all don't need more stuff, do you? This smooth sailing may just, be a life-changing moment in terms of your investments. But mostly it's the wish and the prayer that life calm down a bit for you because you truly have been carrying the load for us. So thank you. Under the rector's report, there's a request for a motion to accept the committee reports as presented. Anybody would like to make that motion? Okay. Audrey, and seconded? Second. All in favor? Aye. You can see the status, I think, pretty clearly on the update on our hurricane recovery. This week, they will be coming, the elevator lift people will be coming to remove our current broken lift, and I'm hopeful that within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, we will have a replacement. And it is a wonderful, wonderful gift that we have received in part from the Boca Grande Disaster Relief Fund and a member of this congregation, a couple who made a donation that this is even possible, not just to have our lift replaced, but to have doors that will automatically open so people don't have to struggle to get in and out or how to get the door open in general. So thank you for that. The last part, I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is the fencing. There's fencing that goes around the AC units and then on the side of the rectory. And once that is done, I believe all of our hurricane recovery projects are done. Is that right? Okay. Thank you to Mike Quartz, our junior warden, who has helped to facilitate all of that.
That calls for a round of applause.
Are there other pieces of news or information that comes before the body? No.
I would just like to say, it's really short. I just arrived last night in the dark, and walking into that church this morning just nearly knocked me over. It is such a beautiful place to come home to. So thank you all for all that you have made this to be.
Just one final word about what happens in the interim between my departure on February 16th and the call of a new rector. Father Chris, as and David announced a couple of weeks ago, is willing to stand in the gap. However, if he were to stand in the gap as our interim, he would have to leave the congregation altogether. in order to make way for our new rector to come. That's the standard practice in the Episcopal Church to clear the decks, so to speak, so that there's not any triangulation and, frustration with, oh, he's not doing it this way, or she's not doing it, the way we want, and we'll go and complain to Father Chris and make life difficult for everybody. So, he is not going to serve as the interim. He is going to serve through April 30th as the priest in charge, and that will help, as I said, stand in the gap, fill the necessary space, especially while you all are here. And then the interim, and none of us know who that is yet, will be in place as of May 1st. And as I said to the vestry, just like calling a new rector, the interim, the bishop should give us 2 or 3 names for which the vestry then questions them and tries to select the interim that will be most helpful during this time period. When the interim period is over and the new rector is called, that creates space for Father Chris, who has made this his community, to be able to re-enter back into the community. So if you don't see him initially, it's not because he doesn't love, he doesn't care, but because he wants to, because he does care, because he does love, and because this is his community, it's his wife's community. And so I hope that you will support the process, as David said, celebrate him and help him during this priest in charge, interim period is what I'm calling it, and then embrace the interim fully so that Father Chris can be a part of this community again when that period's up, okay? And as David said, not sure how long that's going to take. It could take 3 days, not really, or up to a year. And if that's the case, mostly it's because of the nature of our season, and it's a challenge to fill in the gaps when based on the season. Bruce.
Could we give a round of applause to Chris?
Absolutely.
For his contribution?
You're here. And he is going to be with you all through the season of Lent and through to Easter. And we'll probably have to pull someone in to help him at Easter time because of our numbers. So there's going to be opportunities for you to do even more in terms of just supporting and celebrating his ministry and his willingness to be here and to love us and to love you. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Mary.
Anything else? Any questions, worries, wonderments, concerns? Yes?
Can I just remind everyone that on February 16th, we will unfortunately be saying goodbye to Michelle. And that will be the day that after church, we will be doing a celebration for her. It was in the bulletin, as you can see. And that will be all here, that's being set up. And please remember that's our opportunity to come and thank her and say goodbye to someone who has been here leading us spiritually, as a friend, as a mentor, as a spiritual leader for the last 12 years. I was on the search committee that brought Michelle here, and it was one of the most incredible things that I had ever been a part of. And also in your bulletins, if you still have them, or you will also see that the vestry is doing a financial purse for Michelle. If it is in your hearts or the way that you would, one of the ways that you would like to say thank you to Michelle for all she has done.
Kimberly, could you use the microphone? Your husband just said they can't hear you on the YouTube at home. And want to show
You have to hold it close.
You say
You have to hold it close.
or the condensed version.
Just go stand there. Just go.
I don't like microphones.
And she's an RPP, come on.
So anyway, sorry you all get to hear it again. February 16th after church will be a celebration for Michelle and our opportunity to say goodbye to her. So please mark that in your calendars and come so that we can let her know how much we have loved her and still love her and thank her for all she has done. Also, if someone chooses to give a financial gift to Michelle to thank her for everything she has done and send her on her way, the vestry is putting together a purse for Michelle. There are two ways to donate to that. One is to write a check to St. Andrews and mark on the bottom that is rector's purse and then turn it into the church. And the other way is to present Michelle with a check just directly. But please remember to come and say thank you for everything she has done for us for the last 12 years. Thanks.
You can make me proud.
I've tried really hard not to really think about the actual leaving part. Mary said, I can't believe you got through the last vestry meeting without crying, and it's just because I'm not thinking about that leaving piece just yet. What did dawn on me was I had a fire right before I came to St. Andrews, but that was okay because the rectory was fully furnished, and now I leave with the clothes on my back and have to realize that I have to fully furnish another house, and the cathedral does not have housing as you generously do here on the island. And that whole thought is just daunting to try to figure that out in 2 weeks that I have between the leaving of here and the taking on of the new position. So I ask for your prayers for that patience to pull all those pieces together, and just simply say thank you. For 12 and a half amazing years of ministry. And when I stop to think about all the people who I have walked with through life, death, celebrations, baptisms, funerals, that kind of stuff, weddings, the list is long, and I'm moved incredibly by your stories. And so may they continue. With that, I want to close the meeting, unless there's anything else that needs to come before the body.
Just to say thank you, Michelle.
With that, our meeting's adjourned. Go with God.